Akashic Records reader whose journey began with early spirit communication and evolved from a background in mental health therapy into shamanic and intuitive healing. Michele is deeply connected to nature, the elements, animals, and the energy of water. She's devoted to supporting transformation in others. After surviving a life-altering lightning strike in 2019, she now carries what she calls lightning medicine. It's a channeled energy that has amplified her intuitive gifts and deepened her work in physical and energetic healing. Welcome, Michele.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I am not only grateful, but I'm honored and very excited to have you here today because your journey weaves together psychology, spirit, nature, and such a profound life altering experience that you've had. And I'd love to begin at the foundations, before the lightning, before the shamanic work. And I just want to explore the path that kind of led you here.
Mhm.
So, you began your career as a mental health therapist before stepping fully into shamanic and intuitive work. What
Yeah.
shifted within you that made you realize traditional therapy was no longer the whole picture? And how did you bridge psychology and soul work?
Well, from the very beginning of being a mental health therapist, I had all the background help. So I was getting help from the guides. I was getting help from people's ancestors that were showing up in the room. And I got really well practiced at pretending that none of that was going on and using that information to pose my questions. So I don't think there was ever a time in all of those 20 years that I wasn't utilizing that in the background. And it wasn't until, later that I became more open about it and then made the full transition into the intuitive and the shamanic work. But it was always there and it gave me such validation. So, I mean, how many intuitives get to like practice every day with helping people and just knowing exactly the question to ask? So, if someone observed me doing therapy, they would have absolutely no idea that I had that going on in the background. But what students would say to me when they did observe me was, how'd you know to ask that? Or clients would say, I don't even remember telling you that. How did you make that connection? So it would be those kind of things that might give somebody a cue that there was something else maybe going on. Um, but I got really good at pretending, and I got such a confidence boost and such validation in trusting the guides, in trusting the animal spirits, and trusting the nature spirits, the elementals, the ancestors that had passed on, their higher selves, all of that kind of came together that really helped me to develop a communication and understanding who's what. And I have a certain sensation in my body when an angelic presence comes in. And so I know that's there. And that all came from that repeated practice of doing mental health therapy. So I'm really grateful for those years. And you asked about when did I know that that wasn't quite everything? I would get to the point where I felt like there was a stuckness. Like I would start to see like we've mentally or cognitively processed this all we can, which is a really important step on people's healing to have somebody sit with them and bear witness to their story. That's a beautiful thing. But then there's the point that the story's been told, and I would see people and they just had this stuck energy in their body. And that you can't talk that out, right? So, I mean, there's all these other aspects to healing, and mental health therapy is absolutely a path and it has its place, but it's not the only thing. And when people are feeling stuck, like I've worked on this, like yes, there's layers of the onion, of course, and we don't want to spiritually bypass, but also there is a time and a place where maybe it's more shamanic, maybe it's a past life trauma, or maybe it's something in your ancestral generational trauma, or maybe it's energetic. Like there's all these other things that I came to realize that it could be.
Hmm. And that's really interesting because as you're speaking, I'm kind of getting these little messages, and it's about me saying psychology is kind of the scientific bend, isn't it, to it all? And yet, the ancient wisdom, the guides, the ancestors, the animal spirits have been eternal, eternal.
Hmm.
And yet,
Yes.
for us as a human race, we're supposed to be evolving. In a lot of ways, I think we've actually devolved. I don't know if that's a word, but it's like we've kind of gone back.
Yes.
We've turned to science for the answers when all along,
Hmm.
every answer is, is there. It's all provided, but we have
Hmm.
not really been taught to look for that, especially in Western culture. As I
Yeah.
don't know if you agree with me on that or
Yeah, I
not, but
do.
we term ourselves being in the modern world and thinking we're in the lucky world, we're in the more advanced world. But I'm finding it interesting also that even in the allopathic world, even surgeons are kind of now looking at ancient ways of, and we're moving towards light therapy and sound therapy for healing instead of invasive surgeries. I know I'm going off a tangent here, but just
Yes.
talking about that bridge between psychology and the spiritual aspect of how you've blended that. Did you ever find, did you ever come to a point or a bridge or a block in the road where your humanness, your ego, your mind, your common sense, your teachings, your background struggled against the spiritual teachings? Like that, you're learning psychology that's certainly science based. Did you ever come
Hmm.
across that time where you thought, oh, hang on, that actually conflicts with that? Or I'm not
Hmm.
feeling, I'm trained to do that, or I'm taught to do that, but yet I'm being guided to do that instead. Did you
Yeah.
experience that?
Oh, absolutely. And one of I'll give you an example of one that came up quite frequently was I was told early on in my career I had to take a very full history of their entire life. And sometimes opening all of that up and talking about it is the worst thing that you could do. And for other people, again, telling the story is necessary, but if they'd already told the story 1,000 times, or they just didn't need to for whatever reason in their healing journey, I would intuitively know that. And I honestly, I always went with my own internal ethics. So I wouldn't take the history because if it wasn't good for them, I wouldn't do it. Um, Regardless, and I never got fired. I never got in too much trouble. They'd be like, "Oh, you need to take the history." No, I don't. Not with this person. And I would be able to kind of explain why and put it in a scientific framework. And I was able to kind of work with that and really kind of wanting to help people with what was going on in the present. However, that past stuff was affecting them and the present was more important. And that kind of got more mainstream popularity now than it did 20 years ago when I was saying that.